Who do you, and it doesn't have to be either or.
Okay.
It's open.
Okay.
But I'll ask the question anyways.
All right.
Who do you think are the good guys in this war over Ukraine? Russia or is it NATO?
Who's the good guy?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's tough. So I would say it's NATO. However, the way that because if I'm not mistaken, NATO really wants Ukraine to join, right? Is that
It's more so the opposite. Ukraine really wants to join NATO.
Join NATO. If that happens, I think that's wildly. That's going to spark that's like the World War III spark. I think, right? Like that's a big deal. And so I guess it's a double-edged sword. NATO offers them protection, but it also gives Russia, like at that point, there's no holds barred. So I don't know. My gut says NATO, but I'm curious of what you think.
Yeah, I've been doing some reading on it, and because I really just want to understand this conflict a little more and where it's coming from. And then I started looking into it, and some information was coming to light that I'm like, I'm starting to see where Russia's coming from. And NATO, not a huge fan of NATO, if I'm being honest. And so NATO started back in 1949.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of the response to, post World War II era, and then like the divide happened between East and West Germany.
Yep.
And then the Berlin Wall came down, and there was a promise made, and it was voiced by a couple American officials at the time. So I think this was the 80s, that NATO would not expand. They would not expand east of Germany. Mm-hmm. And they'll kind of leave Russia alone, because NATO started as kind of an anti-Soviet
organization.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started. So Putin and Russia in general is just like, all right, just stay away from our borders. Don't expand. We'll do our own thing.
Yep.
And you do yours. Live like that. It'd be great. And then NATO kept expanding, and it went from 12 countries to now I believe it's 30 countries.
Gee.
And now you have Ukraine that was expressing interest. And then you end up finding out that Zelensky ran on a campaign of peace, bringing the country together, of kind of like that kind of territory closer to Russia and then the rest of Ukraine. He ran on like, let's bring it all together. Let's do awesome things. He got elected.
Yeah.
People wanted that. And then Boris Johnson hops on a plane as Zelensky's in talks with Putin over peace treaties. It's like, you're not doing no peace deals with them. And now Zelensky's hands are tied that he cannot run any peace deals, or he will probably get taken out by the CIA most likely. And there's been such a threat between Germany's technology and the marriage of like Germany's technology and the resources that Russia have. Mm-hmm. Goes back to a conversation we had months ago
about energy
and that Nord Stream pipeline 2 being blown up allegedly by the
in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And then, Biden being like, yeah, we're going to blow it up. And then it being blown up. Wild. And so as you kind of hearing these things, like we're on this side of the globe, it's like, but like Russia, like, relax a little bit.
Yeah. But it's easy to blame Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And then when this one interviewer, he put into context, it's like, okay, so what if Russia ended up having a military cohesion with, say, Mexico, and started putting Russian military bases in Mexico? You think America would stand for that?
Right.
No chance. So this is kind of what's happened is America, NATO have been goading this war for a long time. They put Zelensky in an impossible position, and now he's got to either he had to fight or lose his life essentially.
Yep.
And goat Russia into a war. And this is where we're at. Is from what the information I've seen, this was all started by NATO. This was goaded by NATO. Obviously, Russia took the first physical step.
Yeah, because he's not going to play either.
Yeah, no, exactly. But from a political perspective, this was, from what I see and understand and what I've read, this was started by NATO. And Ukraine was just the unfortunate
conduit. They got used. They got used, man. Yeah, Zelensky doesn't come off as the sort of guy who loves war. Like he's not like there's certain leaders love war. Mm-hmm. He doesn't read that way at all.
Mm-hmm. Kind of put in a tough spot. I mean, Buddy, is on friggin'. I mean, he was an actor.
He was, yeah, right.
He's a comedian or something.
He did comedy skits, I thought. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's videos of him being naked on stage and everything.
And now he's the president.
Yeah.
You can do anything, kids.
Leading a war.
Yeah.
Gee.
I wonder what he thinks about tonight. Like, wow, how did I get here?
Yeah, I was thinking of that myself. Like, if I was put into Zelensky's position, where I was, a foreign power who had a lot more weapons than I did, was like, yeah, so you're either going to take an offensive position against a superpower, or you're not going to be leader anymore.
Yeah, or we're going to Epstein you.
Yeah. So what do you choose? Like, in that perspective, I'm like, I don't even know what I would choose. All I know is even if I decide to fight back, they take me out, they're going to install somebody else in my spot anyways, and they're going to do the same thing.
Yep.
I think, honestly, for me, I would step down. I would expose it all, step down, and just leave.
Move in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
100%. Someone else's circus, someone else's monkeys now.
Yeah.
Not mine.
If I'm trying to protect my family, I think that's what I'd probably end up doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as much as I'm not a fan of how much money we've given to Ukraine at this point for a war,
it sort of justifies it, exposes why we did it.
yeah, it makes sense of why all the money's going over there.
Yeah.
From what I was learning, it kind of allowed me to kind of shift my anger and frustration from Zelensky, who I still think, like he's been on TV and he's always, he's always taking an offensive position that America needs to give more troops, Canada, like NATO needs to give more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to understand why he's saying it, because
He's like, you're putting me here.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to tell me that I had to do this, then you're going to give me every stinking thing you're going to give me to fight this thing, because you guys made this impossible.
Yeah. It gives us some context.
It allows me to not be so frustrated at Zelensky himself for like constantly wanting, more money and more troops, whatever. And now I'm like looking at shifting to Trudeau, shifting to Biden, leadership in European countries. Now I'm starting to be like, okay, guys, we really are being led by a bunch of people who want us to be in a world war
perpetually.
And we all know that like Trump wasn't a part of that plan. That's why there was peace for a while. Because there was a lot of tension when Obama was in power.
And it's right back.
Yeah. And all of a sudden Biden gets back in or gets in, and then but the military industrial complex has full control again. And there's like, all right, war, here we go. America.
That is it's like in their DNA. It is in the American DNA to like be at war. Or to have something to do with war in some facet.
We'll end up finding out that like, yeah, it's not the government who runs anything, but it's the military industrial complex that runs things. That changes things. We understand that. And it's like, well, you look at all the money they've invested into artillery.
It's a business. War makes money.
I think the other thing that is really hard to accept, and you start realizing that when you're growing up, you always feel like you're growing up in the part of this world where you're the good guys, that you're bringing peace to the world and showing people how it's supposed to be done. And the more you grow up and the more the veil is lifted, you start realizing that you are in a country that is only in power because they essentially terrorize other countries and point guns at them and make sure they use the petrodollar or else. And you're just like, oh, I have the way of life I have, or the supposed freedom I have, because we have a chokehold on the rest of the world.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd probably get demolished.
Exactly. That's why the Americans have spent so much money on artillery and weapons, and as Canadians, you're just the younger brother that gets to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And it was at that point where I was kind of like, it was just a weird moment. There's only really one time I can understand from the history, I guess say the past 150 years of America existing, Canada, there's really only one war where I was like, we're the good guys in this. World War II. And even then, it took America got pulled into that kicking and screaming. They didn't want to be a part of it. So here we are.
Here we are, man, like on the brink of another one. So,
but they really want this one.
They really want it. Yeah, buy some stocks, boys.
Buy some stock. Gee, thank you for joining us. So if you really like that, you can watch the rest of the episode right here, or you can watch another spicy clip right here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, because it helps you boys out. Peace.